Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're all doing great and ready to talk about something that just dropped and has the community chatting all over social media. Yeah, we're talking about the brand new WWE 2K25 update, patch 1.027. And honestly, there's quite a bit to unpack here, even though at first glance, the notes might look pretty minimal. It's one of those updates where you read stability improvements and performance fixes and you think, all right, that's it. But the truth is, these types of patches usually tell a much deeper story than what's written on the surface. So today we're going to talk about what this update means, what players have been noticing after installing it, what 2K might be planning next, that's French for Valentine, and how this fits into the bigger picture for WWE 2K25 as we move further into the game's post-launch phase. First things first, let's talk timing. This update just started rolling out around October 13th, and the build number you're going to see, especially if you're on PlayStation, is listed as 1.027. Now, on PS systems, they tend to use that format where you get the 0 in there, but essentially this is update 1.227 if you're looking at it from a version standpoint. The patch dropped silently, no major announcements, no flashy trailers, and not even an official changelog on the 2K site when it first landed. That right there already had fans guessing what's going on. And if you've been following the game closely, you know that the previous update, the one earlier in October, was focused on adding some John Cena related content. So people naturally started wondering if this new update was connected to that in some way, or if it's laying groundwork for something bigger, like upcoming DLC or maybe even tweaks for the online systems that have been acting up for a few players lately. Now, here's the thing. When 2K says stability and performance improvements, that can mean a handful of different things depending on what's been going on behind the scenes. Some players on Reddit and Twitter started reporting that after installing the patch, they noticed smoother transitions in matches, slightly faster load times in Universe mode, and fewer random crashes on PS5 and Xbox Series X. Nothing dramatic, but subtle improvements that make the gameplay feel more fluid. If you're someone who plays the game daily or runs a lot of custom matches, you might have picked up on those small changes. And sometimes those are the best kinds of fixes, the quiet ones that make the game just feel better without necessarily changing any of the mechanics you're used to. But let's talk about why this kind of patch even matters. After a major update cycle, like the one that brought in the Cena content, developers usually follow up with a small stability patch to fix bugs that were either introduced accidentally or reported by the community after the last drop. In this case, there were a few recurring complaints, things like commentary glitches, certain custom arenas crashing the game, and random desyncs in online play. While 2K hasn't officially confirmed which of those were targeted this time, players are saying that the game is handling online matchmaking a bit more consistently now. That's a good sign, because online stability has been a hit or miss area for a lot of players since launch. And if you think about the timing, it lines up pretty well with how 2K's support team usually works. They roll out a feature or a content-driven patch, wait for the community feedback to roll in, and then within a week or two, they push out one of these smaller technical updates to clean up the leftover issues. So in that sense, patch 1.027 feels like the maintenance wave after the hype wave. Not the kind of update that's meant to grab headlines, but the kind that keeps everything running smoothly under the hood. That said, people are already speculating that there's more to it than meets the eye. Some data miners have been digging around the game files after updating, and a few claim to have found traces of new entrance animations, sound effects, and even a few references to unannounced superstars that aren't officially confirmed yet. Of course, take all that with a grain of salt, because until 2K or Visual Concepts makes a statement, it's all just fan speculation. But it wouldn't be shocking if this patch was quietly laying some groundwork for future content updates, maybe a new pack or a themed event that ties into one of the upcoming WWE pay-per-views. Historically, this is exactly how they handle it. Roll out a small patch, update internal files, and then announce new content a week or two later. Now, if you're wondering whether you should install the update right away or wait it out, honestly, it's always best to stay current. The particular patch doesn't appear to break anything major, and since it's largely performance-focused, you're just going to have a smoother experience overall. Players on PS5 have been saying that the game feels a touch more responsive, especially in matches with multiple superstars or heavy custom assets. On Xbox and PC, the patch size is relatively small, only a few hundred megabytes, so you're not looking at a massive download here. It's more of a background tune-up than a full overhaul. Something else worth mentioning is that some streamers have reported slight improvements to frame pacing and visual clarity during entrances. It's subtle, but it adds up. This could mean that 2K adjusted how the game handles certain rendering processes, especially when there's a lot happening on screen. Anyone who's been running Universe or GM mode with lots of custom arenas and logos knows how quickly the performance can start to dip. So these types of tweaks are welcome even if they're not front and center in the patch notes. And while we're on the subject of modes, a few players also mentioned that universe mode seems to load story segments a bit faster now. That could be coincidence, but it's probably related to the backend optimizations that came with this patch. Same goes for Creation Suite users. Some have reported fewer crashes when importing custom renders or downloading from community creations. Again, that's anecdotal for now, but if you've been struggling with those crashes before, it might be worth testing again after updating. Another interesting layer to this update is the timing with 2K's ongoing community engagement strategy. We've seen them teasing future content through social media posts and subtle references, so it's entirely possible that this patch isn't just about fixing things. It could also be preparing the game to support whatever's next. And or maybe a Halloween-themed event, maybe a big superstar pack coming later this month. The fact that it rolled out right before mid-October feels like perfect timing for them to start setting the stage for new additions. Now, I want to touch on something a lot of people have been asking. Why doesn't 2K always post full patch notes for these updates? It's a fair question, and the short answer is that some of these fixes are technical in nature or involve internal systems that aren't exactly exciting to read about. Things like updated memory management for arena lighting or adjusted shader load order might not sound flashy, but they're the backbone of how the game performs. So instead of overwhelming players with highly technical jargon, they just summarize it under performance and stability improvements. That doesn't mean the patch is small or insignificant. It just means most of what changed happens behind the scenes. Still, the community always manages to pick up on the differences, and that's part of what makes the WWE 2K fanbase so dedicated. Players notice when the referee moves smoother, or when the lighting looks slightly better in entrances, or when a previously bugged attire now renders correctly. These small quality of life improvements stack up over time, and by the time we're a few patches in, the game feels more refined than it did at launch. And I've got to say, that's one thing 2K has done really well this year. Compared to older entries in the series, WWE 2K25 has seen consistent post-launch support. Updates have been rolling out regularly, issues are being addressed faster, and communication, while still not perfect, has improved noticeably. The dev team seems to be paying attention to feedback, which is great to see. Even if they don't post every detail in the patch notes, the timing of these updates shows that they're actively monitoring what's happening in the community. So if you're someone who's been holding off on updates or thinking about jumping back into the game, now's a good time to do it. This patch might not introduce new superstars or arenas, but it's the kind that makes your overall experience better and smoother. You'll likely notice fewer hiccups, more consistent online matches, and maybe even a little boost in how quickly your menus and modes load up. And of course, that's not to say this is the end of the road for WWE 2K25. Far from it. This patch is probably just one step in a longer update cycle that's going to take us into the winter season. If history repeats itself, we can expect more content drops, special themed packs, and possibly some new features in the coming months. The fact that they're keeping things stable now is a good sign that bigger things are on the horizon. So yeah, that's where we're at with patch 1.027. It's not the most dramatic update ever, but it's an important one because it keeps the game running strong, it irons out those small frustrations that players have been reporting, and it probably sets the foundation for what's next. In the world of live service sports games, stability updates like this are what keep the experience alive and evolving, even when there isn't a big flashy headline attached to them. Before we wrap things up, I'm curious. Have you noticed any specific changes since installing the patch? Maybe smoother gameplay, maybe fewer crashes, or even some small detail that feels different, but you can't quite put your finger on? Drop it down in the comments because I love hearing what everyone's experiencing firsthand. Sometimes, the community finds changes that nobody even mentions in official notes, and it helps paint a clear picture of what's really going on under the hood.